Today, we are going to learn a little bit about brewery accounting, or just kidding. Maybe we're just going to drink and talk about how great Castle Island beer is. We are going to discuss why some crazy accounting firms actually invest in their clients, and apparently some actually get exits out of them too, which is just mind-blowing to you and I. And we're going to get into what in the hell is finance as a service and why your firm out there, firm owners, better figure it out pretty damn quick and should start doing it. All of this here on Drink While You Think, the weekly happy hour conversation between a couple of knuckleheads like us who are building their firm in a really weird way. We got another one of those guys on here today we'll introduce you to shortly, but Matthew first. Well, first of all, I'm your host, Kenji, co-host Matthew. Matthew, I'm thrown off today. We're in the same room, so I'm kind of a little bit off my game.
There's a couple of things going on. We have a sponsor.
What?
We'd like to thank our sponsor today, Castle Island Brewing from Boston, Massachusetts. Castle Island Brewing, where you get your most wonderful beers. Please check out Castle Island Brewing. Thank you for sponsoring Doing What You Think. They're also obviously provided by you guys, the GrowthLab Finance as a Service guys. So appreciate you guys making that happen, and it's fun to have you guys here. Introduce our guest, dude. Be nice.
All right, Dan. Dan, give us the quick intro, and then make sure you tell us what you're drinking. Ooh.
I changed it up. I'm not going to tell my customer. So I'm in New Hampshire right now. So I'm drinking the New Hampshire brew, the Moat Brewing Company of New Hampshire.
Nice. Very nice. Cool. All right. Give us a rundown. What the hell are you doing these days, man? Who are you? What's going on?
Yeah, no, thanks again. Appreciate it. So, you just mentioned it a few minutes ago. We've never actually met in person, and
feels weird, right?
If there's anything that comes out of this pandemic is like, hey, we can actually enjoy like life, personal life, and still do business at the elevated level without having to always be in person. And I feel like over the last 24 months, I've come away with amazing relationships, and all without ever having met. So I'm Dan Gertrudes. I'm actually one of the founders of GrowthLab Finance as a Service. I always start this by saying, not a CPA, not an accountant. Somehow I found myself here. I found myself romping around Boston, doing fractional CFO service. And I was just like, this shit ain't for me. I cannot do this by myself. I'm getting way too old to be doing spreadsheets. And ultimately met Stephen Byler, my co-founder. We bought a bookkeeping business, transformed bookkeeping business into a cloud accounting firm. And then from there, realized, at least from my corporate background, I had spent 15 years in capital markets, M&A, corporate development, and I had an appreciation for FP&A. And I used to tell people no, it's about FP&A. And they would be like, what is FP&A? What does that stand for? And I was like, oh boy, okay. I was like, well, the CFO is kind of here, the bookkeeping accounting is kind of here, and the FP&A is like the thing that keeps it all together. And so I said, we're not going to be accountants, we're not going to be a CPA shop. And so we do term ourselves as a finance as a service. We're very similar to you guys, obviously a fraction of your size. And about 2 years ago, we started a tax practice because I was out to turn the tables on the CPAs, because I always felt like the CPAs owned the relationship. Sorry, Matt. Sorry, Kenji.
That's okay. I'm not even an active CPA anymore. So and we agree with you on that part on the tax accountants. I mean, they're a pain in the ass. I mean, I can't do that.
So this is what we're drinking today. We're drinking the Castle Island Pilsner. It's a Bohemian Shine.
Bohemian Shine is what we're going with.
It's a 4.8%, and this is they sent us not the cheapies. They sent the pints to us, so they're not joking
Czech
around.
Style Pilsner. So cheers, brother.
Good cheers, guys. Appreciate it. And this one is 4.5.
We're keeping it kind of easy going the weekend. Ooh, that's nice. That's very nice. Good Czech Style Pilsner is my favorite style. And these guys are from. So Dan, tell me, you guys work. This is a client of yours. You said they're in South Boston.
Yeah, they're in South Boston.
Is that the part is that called like Southie? I always hear about like Southie.
It is South.
Yeah, isn't that like, I think of these like movies, like these iconic movies I love from Boston, like Good Will Hunting and things like that. Is that Southie? I don't know Southie.
That is like right around the corner.
Oh yeah? Okay.
I live in Providence, Rhode Island.
Okay. Okay.
Once in a while, I go up.
Well, real before you get in the brewery, how would you describe Southie? Like, is it like how do people in Boston think of Southie? Like, is that?
Well, I think it's Southie like in the 1980s and Southie today. Very different.
Very
right?
different.
Very different. Back then, it was a lot of immigrants. It was very colloquial. Today, the city is expanding beyond its original metro area for sure.
And these guys are a client of yours, huh?
Yeah, they are. They just opened up a tap room, a beautiful tap room, and it's ironic because we usually work with venture-backed startups, right? That are more techy. They're focused on the product development. They don't have the finance background. But Adam, we don't work with a lot of breweries. Frankly, I would tell you all the nightmares we've had with breweries over the course of the last 8 years. I won't go into. But I met Adam through a lawyer friend.
Yeah.
And he turned out to be a great guy, but he's so into his numbers, and it's been great, right? He's put it all on the line, right?
Yeah.
He's got a great product, and but it's a very local product, right?
Yeah.
As is most microbreweries, right?
It's solid. I mean, it's, we've done a little bit of brewery accounting in the past, man. You're right. It's hard. It's hard to find someone like your client, Adam at Castle Island, who is actually into their numbers, right? That's one of the things. I mean, breweries are awesome. I love breweries.
Yep.
I hang out all the time, but they can be tough to work with sometimes if that owner doesn't have that mindset of getting in the numbers.
Yeah, I actually got one of my favorite jokes came from a brewery owner. He asked me how you make $1 million with a brewery, and he said you start with 2 million. So that was like,
it is so true.
It's like my favorite brewery joke ever. It's like, I thought you guys were doing okay. I like this beer. I was like, I'm gonna have to. You might only be around for you've been around 3 years. So you got another 3 years of runway going. I get it now. So
yeah, it's one of those industries, right, where somebody starts because of passion or it's something cool, but they don't have you still have to professionalize it. It can't be a hobby. Otherwise, it's just a trust fund baby, throwing money at it, right? At some point, you gotta cross that bridge. And that's hard for a lot of these types of businesses, whether it's cannabis, breweries, right? Back in 2008, I was in banking. Breweries were like a dime a dozen. I mean, you could pick up the tanks, pennies on the dollar, right? The banks were giving it away.
It's funny you said what you were talking about. That breweries made me think of the cannabis industry the same way too, right? This seems like it's going to be fun, and then people who are in it, like some other firm owners I know who are in it, are like, man, it's hard. It is difficult. It's challenging because some of the personalities. So yeah, it's a little tough and tricky there, but
especially now with aluminum prices and logistics. These guys are on allocation. They're waiting 3 months for their stuff to come in. They're buying containers from wholesalers versus the manufacturer. Tough business right now.
It is. It's tough. Great product, just tough business. So, okay. I'm assuming then we're going to talk about investing in clients. I'm going to assume then that, you did not invest in a brewery.
No.
No. we were just sharing. I mean, this is unique. I mean, we've talked about it before on the show. We've had actually probably the most feedback we've ever had from any of our episodes is wait, you guys are doing what? And so to connect with you on this about oh yeah, we've invested in some clients too. I was like, oh shit, that's awesome. That's great to know that. Tell us what's been your experience in investing in clients.
So, it's when where all the skeletons in the closet are, right? The personalities, can you actually grab a beer with that individual? You're investing in the team. It's not just about investing in the customer. It's you actually know when you're doing someone's bookkeeping, accounting, FP&A, CFO, and taxes, a ton of shit about that customer, right? You know a lot, the ins and outs, the personalities, especially. That to me is a competitive advantage, one. And two, it also it brings us closer, right? Because at the end of the day, how do we all make, in our business, how do we make money? You got your customer acquisition costs, you got your gross profit. You like got lifetime value. What are you looking for? Duration, right? I don't need to make 70% gross margins. I'm happy with 50 over 5 years versus 70 over like 12 months. I think like doing things like this, especially when you're embedded in the team, because we always tell our customers, like, view us as an extension of your team. You know, we are your finance team. And if you're that close to the business, like, why wouldn't you put your money? And then that brings you that I see like it gives us duration with a customer.
Oh, yeah.
Now you can't do that for everybody, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we have customer or not customers, but leads would be like, oh, you guys invest, I heard. It's just like, yeah, but that conversation happens like 6 months later. Like,
Yeah, totally.
we need to get to know you first.
Yeah, we need to actually get in and look at those skeletons a little bit. We need to figure out what's happening, if this thing's going anywhere. I mean, we've had some of those too. We've got probably a few right now that you're like, okay, those aren't going anywhere.
Yeah.
But you've had one exit though, is that right?
We did. So
That's
it was a
awesome.
company called Siren Marine. They were actually, I still remember this day, back in the day, this was probably 7 years ago. Like, you would actually go to people's offices to pitch, your services. And I remember telling Stephen Byler, I was just like, this is going to be a waste of our time. They just want bookkeeping. I don't even know why I was in Newport on top of it. So I was like, all right, I'll go for the ride, because let's go get a couple of drinks in Newport. And we ended up hanging out with the customer for probably an hour and a half. And we walked out of there, we were like, oh, damn, this is going to be a big customer. It's the type of customer, and we've talked about this, Kenji, like, when these customers get too big, like when they start paying you $100,000, $200,000 a year, you start sweating a little bit, right? Because you have concentration risk.
Yeah.
Well, this customer became that for us, and we became very close with the team. And they exited to Yamaha about, I don't know, 4 months ago.
That's awesome.
It was great,
Huge
very proud of them.
congrats.
A lot of unfortunate news with the CEO passing away about a year
Wow.
ago, but
Wow.
they became good friends, and we realized from that model, we're like, hey, we can replicate this. Not that we're going to be buddy with all our customers, but we just invested in Roundly X. Roundly X is it's sort of like Acorn for nonprofits, but
Okay.
it's Acorn for crypto. So you round up your credit card charges. Drew and his partner and the board of directors, they're amazing. They've been a customer for a year. And as soon as we met them, we're like, I'm in on this one, because Drew just had it. He put his house on them. He mortgaged his house to fund the business. Why wouldn't you invest in that guy?
Wow. That's awesome.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, all the stats that we've looked at for angel investing, kind of prove that out. It's basically like, if you're done kind of 20 to 40 hours of due diligence or more, you have a 6 to 7x outside return over people that don't. And you have that built-in advantage with a client that's been with you for a while, where you've done basically due diligence, right, on the customers. So that's actually a stat that's out there from the ACA that kind of does national surveys on what people do before they invest and kind of stuff like that.
The closer you are with them, right, you get to know them, and it's all you're investing in the team, right, at the end of the day, because
dude, an exit.
All right. Well, we had partial exits.
That partial. We've not had a full.
We've had some secondaries that we've been able to take some off on, but nothing.
Wow.
We haven't had a full exit on anybody yet.
Damn,
Yeah,
that's
that was
awesome.
great. It was a good feeling.
Inspiring.
Just like, because I've had this thesis in my head for like 5 or 6 years, and everybody would always shoot it down. Like, you can't, that's not going to like do it. I'm like, I don't know. At some point, like you actually, there's information asymmetry, right? You know what's going on.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
The other thing, then one of the things we've done is we won't lead around. Like, we'll only follow on and around. So that really helps with some of the noise out there. If somebody's done, like, they have to have a round going and that kind of stuff, because we're not gonna do all the pricing the round and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
So that's
we do 25K around. We do 25K chunks in a seed.
Yeah.
We won't touch Series A. It's too late by then, right? It's pre-seed, seed. It's fun. It keeps us close. So,
well, I have it in different buckets in my head. Like, we've done anywhere from common to seed to convertible notes to saves to the one we did a Series C round, which we
Oh, that was
like.
it. Yeah.
So that was one where, it was we didn't take that out of whatever our angel budget though. That's like more of a different budget that we had kind of in our heads to stuff like that.
So one of the other reasons why we do that, like we're doing this is we're not a partnership model, right? We're a corporation. And I think I had told you the other day, Kenji, like we just brought on our first 26-year-old shareholder, right? Yeah. And so now we're up to 3. What we said was, there is this pool of opportunity here, and whatever your percentage of the corporation is, we actually allocate that same percentage to that shareholder in the LLC that holds the investments. And so we do like a series LLC where it's based on vintage. And so, because, at the end of the day, they do have credit, in my head, at least, they have credit for the cash that was produced, the free cash flow for the growth. And it gives them another incentive. It creates stickiness, right? In my mind, it creates stickiness for these young team
Absolutely.
members.
We did talk about that. I think it's a great retention model, right? Saying like, listen, it's a natural retention model that's saying, hey, there's some upside. We bet on our clients, but we're gonna have to wait till there's a transaction, and you can participate in that. I mean, you got to be here, you got to invest, you got to get involved, you got to be here for that. And that's everybody right now is looking for ways to retain people. So, I mean, use whatever you can for sure. So I assume that based on that good outcome you guys had, you're going to be doing more investing in clients, I guess, where you see the opportunity. Is that right?
Yeah. So yesterday, as a matter of fact, I shot a Slack to Steven and to Corey, and I said, hey, here's 2 new customers that are coming through onboarding. I said, we need to keep an eye on these 2 because I'd like to get a piece of those 2. Why? Because you see the team and you're like, okay, these are solid people. They're not jackasses, right? They're straight shooters. They're putting it all on the line. They're not, moonlighting like a lot of startups. So, but we don't lead with that. Like I would never have told those 2 leads, oh yeah, the money's here.
Right.
My kid's going to college next year. I need the money.
How about that? Yeah.
Have you branched out past customers, or have you gone into we've dabbled in the accounting tech space?
No, I haven't. I know you guys did Giraffe.
We did Giraffe and Verity and Tally4, and who else have we done?
We haven't talked about this.
Helm and VerifyQ. Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting. Like, I feel like we've done some of those. I mean, yeah, we get an early look at those things, and those tools typically benefit us as a firm. Right. But I don't know that I feel like we get a unique advantage like we do when we do diligence, to your point, when it's a customer and you're in there in the financials.
Oh, for sure. And we look at that. If you look at just if we marked our portfolio to market, we have outsized returns in our client section compared to the accounting tech section, where we just have industry expertise, but not necessarily, we didn't do necessarily what I consider the diligence that we probably should have done.
But you guys are like the amazing accounting finance team for these investment companies. How can they not succeed, right?
Oh God, we'll see. Who knows? We'll see. We're cheering all of them on for sure. But it's funny, as I think about it, Dan, like, to me, it makes it even more self-evident why, like, you don't come from an accounting or background, you're not a CPA. It's like, oh, you're thinking in ways that like firms don't. But it's so funny, whenever we talk about this, every accountant I know is like, I want to do that, I'm so interested in that. But sometimes you just have to come at it from like a totally different lens, right? To be like, okay, I'm going to look for opportunities here. So hopefully this will encourage more firm owners, like, listen, it's not just us 2 nut jobs, which they all know we're a bunch of nut jobs. But like, hey, okay, there's more out there, right? I mean, we just included you, unfortunately, Dan, in a group of nut jobs.
Well, I mean,
I'm good with that. My whole team thinks I'm a friggin' nut job.
I mean, one commonality though with Dan and us is that we serve that sector that this is logical for. Like, if you're not serving the SaaS sector,
startups and venture,
that's like probably that are on that venture path, like that's a totally different model.
And also like the fact that you worked in M&A, right? You worked in corporate M&A, so doing deals was part of your job historically. There's probably a lot of people, I guess, a lot of firm owners who don't have venture-backed clients, who've never worked on deals before, who are like, man, this sounds like it's from another universe, from a totally different space. That is hard. I mean, you're right. That's, we encourage.
It's really, I mean, for most people, like, never mind CPAs or accountants. I mean, for most, this is really a stretch, right?
Yeah.
A little out of the box, right? And by the way, you need to have like play money to be able to do this.
Totally.
Otherwise, I can take $25,000 and go hire 2 people and make them profitable in 3
Right.
months, right?
There are better ways that have been proven to make money off of, $25,000. But you said something earlier that I think resonates with me and probably Matthew is, we think it's a lot of fun. Like it's fun. We enjoy it. And I think you probably should go into it that mindset of like, oh, this is interesting and enjoyable, but like certainly shouldn't be betting on your retirement on it.
But both of us have something else in common. We're doing it with somebody else, which makes it fun.
That's true.
Like doing it by yourself ain't very much fun. I just don't think. Like doing it with another person,
Your partners,
and like, so if there's a win, you get to share and do all that kind of stuff versus doing it by yourself. And so that's
or if it blows up and it's a loss, you're like, all right, let's go get a drink and like whatever. Oh,
I'm totally nostalgic when it comes to that, right? It's a lot that everything, at least I look back at the last 8 years, like nothing replaces the relationships, and you guys know this, right? Nothing replaces the relationships. The power of, I had a mentor that once told me, when I first started this, because I actually started this by myself. And then I met Steven like at a networking event, and it just happened to be, he was in a transitional phase in his life. I was just like, hey, I could use like some help. And now he owns 50% of the company, right? It's just like, you got to take risks on some people. And, obviously he didn't actually get back to me for another 3 weeks after I made the offer.
You didn't think about it.
But yeah, no, the relationships make it a whole lot. I mean,
whole different.
Otherwise, this shit's a grind. This is a grind.
It is a grind. I mean, I think you have to look for interesting things to do with interesting people to keep it. Otherwise, it is a grind. I'd say last topic I wanted to hit before we rate these beers. I feel like there's going to be a very high rating. But all right, talk about doing different things. I really feel like GrowthLab, and I think of you and Steven, like you're the finance as a service evangelist out there. I feel like you're talking a lot about it. I think people are starting to hear about it. And I still think there's a lot of people who don't know what it is. So, all right, how do you describe finance as a service?
I think it's like what we do, but we're doing it consistently and constantly. I go back to that, the extension of the team. We are your finance team. We're not somebody that you pick up the phone and call once a year and deliver a shoebox worth of crap, and then have somebody in the, Betty the bookkeeper in there, like typing things away. Put aside like the technology and put aside like the people, because we talk a lot about the DNA of the people too, right? Because finance and accounting it's 2 different people, right? You got to recruit differently. But putting all that aside, it's like, okay, what do companies need? Well, they need like cadence, and then they need standardization, rigor of the deliverables, right? It's that plan, revisiting the plan, et cetera. And then it's the team, right? Because you do need the team in order to create leverage. Because otherwise, any of us could do this. It would just mean we would be doing it all the time, right? And you can't scale.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know. I'm just like,
do you think, Dan,
is doing this? And it's like, I can't believe people don't plan. Like they shove the damn plan in the top right-hand drawer of their desk, and they're like, oh, why don't I have more money in the bank account? My P&L says I made $1 million. It's like, come on.
I remember when you described it to me, and it resonated with me and made sense, right? When you think about finance, I think sometimes accountants get a little bit jammed up of like, is that, if it's not debits and credits, I don't know how to do that, which I want to ask you about the team in a second. But when you describe it, you're like, yes, there's a cadence to planning, to financial planning. And you can kind of look throughout the year and kind of plan this stuff out. Like there's probably coming out of large companies that you've been at, there's probably a regular cadence that it's probably not identical to a small business, but there's a lot of takeaways that they could be following of like, hey, it's this time of year, like, let's get ahead on some things. I think the one thing that probably accountants and that we think of is like, oh, budgeting season, right? But that's probably all accountants think of today. Yet there's probably a hell of a lot more cadence throughout the year beyond just budgeting of where there's a natural time frame that certain activities fit. So when you described that to me, I was like, oh shit, that's right. That's a good thing. We're always looking for recurring services that accountants should be considering and thinking about that are not today. But do you think that on your team, what's been your experience, Dan? I mean, do you think this is something that finance as a service can be done by accountants, or do you think that's a different skill set? Or what's been your experience there?
So we have offered roles to our younger staff accountants in, say, a financial analyst role, and they don't want it.
Interesting.
It's different, right? Accounting is very structured. How we do and deliver finance is structured, but it requires a whole lot of, I mean, why the hell would you be investing in startups if you can't think beyond like the trees, right? You gotta, it's like blue sky.
Yeah.
That's not everybody's built the same. And I'm not an accountant. Like, you don't even want me touching the books. Like, I always get yelled at when I touch my own books, right? But I can run circles if I'm in front of a whiteboard, and trying to reimagine how a revenue model can kind of come together for a lonely founder, right? Getting those juices flowing. Now, the financial analyst, like a 22-year-old, like coming right out of college, they're not going to be able to do that. But they do understand the basics of like financial statements and the drivers and the secondary drivers, and digging in a little bit and understanding like what makes things like, how do you acquire a customer, go to market strategy, all that stuff kind of goes into building your long range plan.
Yeah.
I don't want to come off like a management consultant when I talk about like an annual strategic business cycle, but it's like a framework. If you've got the higher level framework,
yeah.
And by the way, accounting is very much part of that annual framework, right? Like, accounting closes every month. Right. Like, the annual framework doesn't close. You don't give raises to employees every month. You give it simple things like give your employee reviews in February. You closed out the year, review the prior year, review your current AOP. So that way, when you're planning, like, what's your role this year? Like, okay, you're going to get a $5,000 raise because our goal is to make you senior analyst of something or a manager, right? So it's adding a framework. And I'm a big believer, like, this shit's just got to be boring. Like, accounting is boring. Finance has to be boring too. The problem you have with like CFOs, it's all hourly. It's the pull versus push model. Accounting and bookkeeping has always been comfortable pushing to the customer. I close your books on the 15th. Boom, here's your numbers.
Yeah.
CFOs don't push. They always sit around like a lawyer waiting for the phone to ring and be like, oh, you need to update your numbers for an investor deck. Okay, no problem.
We've experienced that. Sit around and wait we're like, hey, CFO crew, y'all doing anything over there?
All right.
Oh, clients are kind of quiet right now. You're like, well, maybe pick up the phone. That's one of Matthew's favorite, is like, just pick up the damn phone. But it doesn't happen. You're right. So sometimes building in it's a good way to think of it as making it boring to where it's just part of a rhythm and a cycle, to where you don't have to sit there and wait. You're pushing that out to a client. So anyway,
our carbon jobs have this. Like, our carbon jobs are just like boring. Just tick off this list. Ask the customer the questions. Did you hire somebody this month? Oh yeah. Okay, let's update the rolling forecasts.
Yeah. You gotta do it that way. There's no other way to really do it. Otherwise.
And by the way, we really suck at this. Like, this is not easy. Like, it's not easy. If it were, like, everybody would do it. But I think like over the last 2 or 3 years, we've like turned the corner.
Yeah. I think it's a good challenge for firms out there who are listening to this, who are like, listen, there are a ton of other ways, which is why it's fun talking to Dan and Steve and the GrowthLab crew, to where we thinking about different things to get into. It doesn't have to be out there investing in our clients. It could be, if you like that, if that's your thing, like we're doing. But it certainly could be thinking about how do you get your team working more proactively? Call it more boring, like you've called it, Dan, of where it is systematized. It's a process, it's a framework. You're just repeating and repeating. And there's a lot of work out there. If you just start thinking of like, it's not just waiting for the client to call, or I'm only going to do an accounting close process. So it's been fun I've really enjoyed the fact that you and I have talked half dozen times at least, probably more. We still can't wait to hang with you in a few months here. but like of where like it just resonated with me of like, this is where we've seen growth in the profession. And you guys are GrowthLab's been out there leading the way, man. I feel like you all have been leading the charge.
Yeah, like the conference. I listened to the podcast that Matt did with your marketing person.
Oh,
like
yeah.
that just resonates, right? Like when my first job out of college was sales, and it was not boring. It was anything but boring. It was just like you were out all night, like you were. Today, sales is nothing like.
Sales is
a goddamn formula, right?
Yeah. It totally is, right?
It is.
I made
Can you churn out the content? Can you get the eyeballs? Can you convert the eyeballs to this? Did you bleed them the right shit at the right time? It's crazy. Yeah, I'm with you.
It's math, right?
It's math.
It's just math. I mean, I guess it sounds terrible, but like, thank God, if it was still that old way it was, we'd all be dead. We'd be, I mean, it'd just be, dead, divorced, broken.
Divorce, yes.
For sure. So, all right, well, let's land this thing and rate some beers. Let me pull up our wonderful rating, folks. Follow us on a good old Untappd if you'd like. I've got it pulled up, Matthew. I've already got the Bohemian Shine pulled up and it's here. You want to go first or want me to go first?
You go do the Pilsner rating. I'm going to go with your rating on this one.
Are you really? Okay.
I am.
You're going to be
It's not a dark beer.
I'm going to go 4.5 on this. I really like this because
you were the Pilsner connoisseur.
I really like this because it reminds me of a Pilsner Urquell, which is like the top level, the top of the best. I think Czech Pilsners. I mean, it's a pint beer. It went down like it was like 8 ounces, like those old little 8 ounce like things. That thing just flew by. I'm like, man, that thing just crushed that thing. So
confirm it, baby.
that was great.
All
right, Dan, what are you drinking again?
It's a Moat, M-O-A-T Mountain Brewing Company.
Okay.
And it's called the East Intervale IPA.
East Intervale IPA. There it is.
There it is.
East Intervale IPA. You get to rate this thing anywhere from 0 to 5 in quarter increments. What are you going to give it?
I think this is a 4.25. It's
Woo!
actually great. It's low in alcohol, right? So it's only 4.5.
Oh yeah, 4.5
So you can't.
That's kind of nice. That
nice for an IPA, right?
that leaves your room for more. Is what I think. So especially on a day of skiing like you've had, hey, you got to do après ski. You got to have a little room for more drinks. So.
Yeah. I'm here waiting for my family to arrive.
There you go. Perfect. You maybe get one more in there.
Thanks for carving out time for us.
Yeah, dude, Dan, seriously, man, for day of skiing with the family. Thanks for carving it out. We appreciate this.
Thank you to Castle Island Brewing for
great sponsors
for sponsoring us.
You guys been great. Thanks for Dan and Steven and the whole crew and Corey for helping us get this sponsorship lined up. And dude, cannot wait to hang with you in San Diego, brother.
Totally. And Matt, pleasure.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.